Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here, and I wanted to talk to you about something I find incredibly important, and that isn't just the coronavirus, which is literally what every single person in the world is talking about, and obviously the economy, but why? Who benefits? Where is this going? And I believe there are certain people who do indeed benefit, certain governments perhaps, not just any governments, certain governments that have been long in the playbooks to take over, that definitely do benefit from this insanity that's taking place on a historic scale. I'm going to first go into this story out of the Wall Street Journal that says U.S. coronavirus cases surpass those of China and Italy. And going on to the next article here, it shows coronavirus live updates. U.S. overtakes China for most cases. American Airlines flight attendant dies. Dow climbs 1,351 points. And obviously a lot of Fed intervention, lots of printing, lots of communist central planning happening right now. And, well, the issue is that there's a lot of shaky quote-unquote facts out there regarding how this is all adding up. As this article says, Europe reports deadliest day on record. Global COVID-19 case total passes 700K. Now, a couple days ago, they said it was getting better. The day before that, they said it was a worst day on record. They're going up and down, saying it's getting worse, getting better, getting worse, getting better, all over the place. I don't know what to believe. In fact, I don't believe any side at this point. All I know is there are people who benefit from all of this insanity, and you have these doctors going on TV, like this Dr. Fauci guy who says we're going to have millions of cases and between 100K and 200K deaths. Well, you know, a lot of people seem very sure of this, and I can't help but think of Agenda 2030 and the talk about depopulating the Earth, and obviously combining that in with a bunch of other UN agendas, which gets people on their knees begging for the government to help them in creating kind of a global communist order, which is what I see playing out right now. And currently we see a lot of chaos in the streets and pandemonium as this pandemic, as this article says, West faces social bomb as pandemic sparks unrest among poorest because people don't have jobs. People don't have businesses. They're being told to stay home. They're being told that they cannot work. They're saying maybe we'll give you $1,200 each out of a stimulus bill that is going to involve way more money than that, mostly going to things like the JFK Center or whatever, which, by the way, just seized funding artists right after they got all this money. All this crazy stuff tied in with the stimulus bill. I think there's a controlled collapse happening here, guys. A controlled collapse. People panic, they fight, they infight, they don't fight the real enemy. They're not prepared, they're weak, they're dependent. As that old saying goes, weak men create hard times. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times create weak men. And we go in that circle over and over again. But in this case, I think this is completely controlled. And I believe that China is playing out a many decades-long script here, along with the CIA and international community, to become the new global order after being a test ground, guinea pig state, for many decades. As this article from a while ago says, Pompeo denounces China's Wuhan virus disinformation campaign before G7 leaders. So obviously limited hangout in this case because obviously Pompeo is a CIA shill, but with that said, he's calling out a lot of disinformation regarding the Wuhan campaign to claim that coronavirus has gone away, all is good, all is well. Don't worry about it, guys. Look, we have evidence that everything's going to be okay because China has cured coronavirus. That's what they say, isn't it? But is it true? And what I'm going to go into today shows that I don't think this is true. And you guys can make your own decisions on this. And I'm also going to go into what this will lead to. Before I go any further, make sure to hit that like button and check those links below. We need your help now more than ever. I'm sitting here in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, doing this because, well, I don't have a choice. I'm not even allowed back into the United States right now as a Canadian citizen. Anyway, as this article from asiannews.it says, Wuhan doctors, authorities lied about coronavirus, and this is a story I've been hearing about a lot from many of the doctors in Wuhan, that this was completely falsified, that they cured people. In fact, at the time when it was really breaking out in the beginning, December, January, there was talk about thousands of bodies being incinerated in mass dumps of bodies and mass graves. It's just beyond like Nazi type stories that we're hearing coming out of China. I can't even imagine what we're going to hear about in the coming years. But carrying on to this next article here, it says out of Zero Hedge, China lied, released infected COVID-19 patients ahead of Xi visit to Wuhan, according to a doctor. And we've gone into this article in past live stream news shows, but basically it was talking about how multiple doctors have come forward and said they cleared out these places and let people with the disease go, while letting the president or Winnie the Pooh or whoever you want to call it come in and talk to people and act like all is well. And he succeeded. Everything was successful. He succeeded. And all is going to be well in China, and they will be able to rise up as a new superpower as everyone else collapses, which I'll go into more in a moment. But this is one of many stories like this. As this National Review article says, China is pushing a zero myth on COVID-19. And it goes into how there is countless evidence that there are people still infected in the country that are just being misdiagnosed or being told that they have this thing or that thing when they actually have COVID-19 or coronavirus, which is the opposite of the rest of the world, where you have people with pneumonia being diagnosed with coronavirus when they don't actually have it, propping up numbers in one place and knocking down numbers in another place. It's interesting how they do that, and I'm going to go into a little bit of why. First, going to this New York Post article, as it says, shipment of urns in Wuhan raised questions about China's coronavirus reporting, and there have been countless examples in China of massive amounts of urns, and we're talking like just a continuous shipment of urns in the country, which is concerning a lot of people, that maybe even millions of people could have died already at this point, and that there's a weaponized spread going on, but on an international stage, they're depopulating, but everything is okay, don't worry about it, they're going to recover, they already have recovered, the rest of the world just needs to succumb to the slavery that they so much revere in so many ways and go into their house for maybe 2 years, as some establishment figures say, and lose their jobs and have communist takeovers of property, printing of currency, and forced vaccinations and cashless society and all these things that we're going to go into further in a moment. Bear with me. I want to get through the context here. And then we go through the context, and then I deliver what I believe is happening. So, as this Washington Examiner article says, U.S. spy agencies warned Trump that China was lying about coronavirus. Going on to the next article out of the National Review, coronavirus and China's missing citizen journalists. Countless people that have been critical of the government in China, which, by the way, there's huge activist rise up campaigns and protests happening right before all this happened, conveniently, that have all been completely wiped out by this pandemic. A bunch of people are just disappearing, going missing. No one knows where they've gone. One guy, journalist who called Xi Jinping a fool and a buffoon over his handling of coronavirus, is now missing, and nobody knows where he went. Moving on, and that's, by the way, something that China knows a lot about, does very well, is just disappearing people, killing people, organ harvesting, you name it, is one of the most tyrannical fascio-communist states in the world by far. Carrying on here, as it says out of Bloomberg, China's mobile carriers lose 21 million users as virus bites. This is very interesting, but 21 million numbers just disappeared off the record. Where did these numbers go? This was far above the less than a million the month before in January, and much less in December. Numbers are just disappearing. Where are these people going? They just don't want to have phones anymore. They just don't feel like being connected to the technocratic grid that basically enslaves all of China and is almost inescapable. Well, what's going on? Why are all these numbers disappearing? And a lot of people have been asking that question, but no one wants to answer it. And what was interesting is, if you look at Google here, there is nothing. If you look up China phones disconnected on Google, there's basically nothing. There's little articles where they allude to, phones are disconnected, and that kind of stuff. But there's nothing about that specifically. If you look at China missing phone numbers, you can see one article that alludes to it here. Can China's COVID-19 statistics be trusted? Which I can pull up on the screen right here. And it does go into some of the stats that question China and their numbers, and loosely alludes to the missing phone numbers, but doesn't go into it at all. And it's a really crazy thing to not dig into deeper. But now, even DuckDuckGo, it's almost impossible to find anything on. I had to find an old link to find this Bloomberg article on China's mobile carriers losing 21 million users. And that's out of Bloomberg. It's mainstream media. And I can't find it anymore. I had the link, luckily, and I'm still able to keep it. But where are those people? Where did all of those people go? So here's the deal. This is what I think. This goes back a long way. You go back to the 1970s when Henry Kissinger met with Mao Zedong. Obviously, a man responsible for millions, tens of millions of deaths. One of the most bloody dictators in history. One might say was much worse than Hitler, though it should be a contest, but was much worse than almost any dictator ever. Maybe Stalin and him could have a contest, but at the end of the day, the tens of millions of people that have died, no one talks about it anymore, and the Chinese government still bows down to this mass murdering psychopath. But anyway, Henry Kissinger met with Mao Zedong in the 1970s against Nixon's wishes, created an alliance with China, and leading out of that into the Jimmy Carter administration, Zbigniew Brzezinski helped form that alliance deeper, create a trade monopoly for China, created the Trilateral Commission, and wrote about in his books on technocracy how he wanted to see China, or any state for that matter, rise up as a technocratic super state and create a technocratic grid where everyone's basically tied into computers, tied into chips, tied into what would now be considered facial recognition, tracking. And he was kind of the mastermind behind that in China. Now, obviously, China followed that advice very closely. In recent years, created social credit. Social credit basically gave everyone a credit score based on how good of a person they were as an outstanding member of society. If they criticize the government, it goes down. If they are good and obey every rule, it goes up. If they pay every fine, tax, ticket, whatever it might be, goes way up. If they have the right hairstyles and the right clothing, it goes up. But if they do the wrong thing, if they have any independence at all, it completely goes down. They can't eat at restaurants, they can't fly, sometimes they can't leave the country at all. They can't buy food for their family, they are left homeless, they can't get homes. And on top of that, in some cases, people would have a low social credit score, but they would still be able to fly, but they blast a high-pitched blaring beep into their ear so they feel sick and get headaches. I mean, think of that. That's just evil. That's Orwellian. And that's something that is happening now in China, has been happening for years in China. Facial recognition on the streets where police are walking around with goggles that have people's social credit scores above their heads and can pick out, faces in crowds and tell police who they should just, harass on the street. On top of that, people walking down the street, they jaywalk a little bit by a crosswalk. They get immediately a ticket, a fine to their phone over SMS, while their face is shown on a giant billboard and they're shamed. And that's how quick it is, just like that. This tyrannical, it's horrible, and it's exactly what Zbigniew Brzezinski wanted. God rest his soul. It's concerning to me to see all of this coming to fruition right now, because obviously the IMF has been talking about for years, as we went into many years ago here at WHAM. This article is old, from July 24th, 2017, as it says IMF could be based in Beijing in a decade, according to Lagarde, who's now running the ECB, of course, taking over for Mario Draghi, someone who's been indicted for many fraudulent charges. Anyway, we don't have to go into all the illegal activities of these criminals in power, but the point is, the global banking system has been talking about basing themselves in Beijing for quite some time. There's been obvious talk about pushing towards a world reserve currency in China and utilizing a cashless society. And the cashless society has been growing in leaps and bounds over the last 10 years. I mean, in the United States, only 3% of cash is actually cash. The rest is cashless. It's digital, completely digital. Now, let me explain. If your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's a bank's. If your money is always going through the banks via digital transactions, legal tender laws, usury, social, on the social contract, it's not your money. It's never your money. It's always a bank's. You're enslaved to the banking system. They can bail in your bank account, so you cannot have your money. They can just take it, not give you any deposit or insurance back. Maybe if they do, it's like 3%. On top of that, they can tax you, they can track you, they can control you. There can't be bank runs. There's basically a complete monopoly of power over you as human beings. And that's exactly what they do with the cashless system. It's centralized. It's through the central banking system. It's all through the banks. It's not your money ever. So you are just numbers, digits in the social credit program that they're trying to grow worldwide. You're just a subject, a slave to some digital technocratic empire. It's something out of a science fiction movie, isn't it? It's real. It's reality. It's what they are doing. It's what they've been talking about doing for a long time. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is fact. This is exactly what they're doing in China, and they're trying to unroll in many other places. Sweden has negative interest rates and has for a while, and they've been going fully cashless. Japan has had negative interest rates for a while. They're going fully cashless. And Canada has it written into their banking regulations, and the central bank in Canada just maybe 6 months ago was talking about creating their own digital currency in order to compete against decentralized private ones like Bitcoin and Monero and privacy coins, because they were afraid that they're going to overthrow the banking system. So they wanted to create their own in order to control people. And as I've been talking about for many years, we would see interest rates be nudged up and they wouldn't be able to go up enough, and they drop out into negative. Now the United States is at 0% interest rates, and technically speaking are already negative. And now they're going cashless. It's exactly as I predicted, down to the detail, and people still call me crazy. I'm not going to gloat anymore. I'm just saying, my God, how many times I've said this and nobody listened. Nobody listened. But moving on here, we are seeing this happen all over the world right now. In Darwin, Australia, they've got a smart city project that is about creating a complete surveillance state, technocracy, smart cities, whatever you want to call it, on the ground in Darwin, recording every moment, recording every movement, recording every person. And hopefully to them putting it into a social credit system, which is interesting because Mark Zuckerberg went to China and worked with China on creating a facial recognition system. And it's interesting because Facebook, whatever that social media is in China, I always forget the name of it, like them, they're creating a system where they can use your Facebook profile with social credit, what's now considered shadow banning, to decide your credit score on Facebook. And they are trying to release Libra, which is failing terribly because people are seeing through it. But nonetheless, that can carry over easily into a U.S. social credit system. But the U.S. social credit system will be the least of our worries, in my opinion, and I'll continue on in a moment. But then we see stories like this out of CNN Business from about a week ago. It says, do not take a bunch of cash out of the bank because of coronavirus, because they say not only is a run on the bank a bad idea, but also because you'll get coronavirus by touching the cash. Half the cash being crisp, new Federal Reserve notes that no one has touched. But hey, you'll get coronavirus and you have to stop using cash. Go all digital, they say. So you can touch the screen at a store that everyone's touched and put in your signature for your credit card or whatever it might be, or touch the pen, whatever it might be. It's ridiculous. It's scientifically illiterate. And on top of that, it shows more about what I'm saying. They're trying to create this cashless society and enslave us into it. And that's exactly where they're going. So I talked about how Henry Kissinger established that alliance with China. That alliance leads into the Trilateral Commission under Zbigniew Brzezinski and a technocratic superstate, which allows China to unroll as a new superstate. As I've been saying for many years, China is set to surpass the United States in the next 5 to 6 years as a world superpower. And now I don't think it's a competition. I think both are terrible. But with that said, China overpowers the United States. China rises up as a new world currency, world reserve currency, possibly implemented with the SDR at the IMF, special drawing rights. And then on top of that, the perfect storm happens. Coronavirus. The China starts looking real bad. They're getting worse and worse with the coronavirus, and their economy is collapsing, and everyone else seems like, okay, calm before the storm, right? And then it pummels every country because China has the biggest tourist industry in the world outside of their country, going out to all these places around the world. If you've ever been anywhere literally in the entire world, even the most remote places, you'll see a busload of Chinese tourists. It's a perfect storm. It causes the spread, and I believe weaponized, coming out of a Wuhan lab that they say leaked, might have leaked accidentally. This isn't bats, guys. They've been eating bats there for a long time. It leaks out of a lab, which, by the way, was carrying a sample of the novel coronavirus, which it had since at least 2015 or 2016, when a sample went missing from a Winnipeg, Canada lab, which they received from the Netherlands originally. And then it leaks into China. China gets really bad. Everyone else is fine. Then they say the coronavirus is getting better in China, while every other place in the world starts getting pumped up. They're over representing the number of coronavirus deaths in every other place, underrepresenting them in China, trying to tip the scale in order to make China look better. Every other economy in the world crashes. China says they're doing well. Their stock market might end up going up without as much of the crazy central planning and printing of currency, which is causing things like inflation in the United States. And you have the entire U.S. empire come collapsing down, as I reported in my video, The Fall of Empires, out of Rome, Italy, last year. You have the entire U.S. empire collapse, and then China rise up as the new superpower. This is the perfect storm for us to be pushed into this communist centralized system, and it's perfectly happening right now in the U.S. So they print trillions and trillions of dollars into the economy, trying to pump up the stock market artificially. Interest rates go to 0% and negative, as I've been calling for a while. And then everyone's out of work. Basically everything that's not like medical or perhaps food production is gone. Electricity, I guess some people, essential workers in the electricity industry, are still there. But everyone is in their homes watching their Chinese approved programming on Netflix. They aren't allowed to go outside in many places. In places like Spain, people are getting beaten in the streets by cops, even though they have permission to be outside, because they're walking down the streets. The public property, quote unquote, whatever that you want to call that, public property, it's a communist myth, but public property, government says we seize full ownership of it. Your house, we seize full ownership of that. We're paying your rent. Oh, everyone goes, great, they're paying my rent. They're paying your rent, guys. They're literally printing currency, inflating the price of living to pay your rent, taking ownership of your private property, meaning that you don't own that land anymore. You don't own that property anymore. They kick you out of your job. They take over all businesses. They say there's going to be relief for all these businesses. Communism. Remember, the difference between fascism and communism is fascism is control over all corporations. Communism is a government is a corporation. And we're seeing a mixture of fascio-communism like out of China right now. And I think we're leading into that immediately. So everyone ends up in a communist Chinese-style system. They force vaccinate. There's a cashless society as they're pushing in the United States. Gordon Brown, former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, is saying that he wants to see this the world create a global government to stop coronavirus. This is all part of a plan, and not the plan that a lot of QAnon people are saying. This isn't that plan. This is the exact opposite, and everyone's complacent, sitting there going, oh, please help me. I'm desperate. I'm dependent, because people have become weak and dependent by design through the public school system, through the media, through indoctrination, through just, food, what's in our food, what's in our water. People have become weak. People have become dependent, and that's how empires fall. And meanwhile, you have this massive superstate rising up, China, and like I've always predicted, China wins. China becomes the new world order. That was a new world order. That is the new empire. And the current one is falling. And God knows what it's going to lead to among the average person living out there watching this video right now, unless you do something about it. People say, well, now isn't the time to fight. We have a pandemic on our hand. How is this not the time to fight? If this isn't the time to fight, then we might as well just start digging a grave and hop right in and bury ourselves. Because we are so far gone at this point and so late to the draw. And yet we're still hearing people say, oh, this fear-mongering. Oh, that's just conspiracy theory. We're literally in the thick of it. And people are still saying that. Sometimes I wonder if some people deserve to go, but I believe in saving all people. I believe in helping people understand this kind of stuff, and that's why I keep doing this on a daily basis. But I believe this is all about China and a global order based on the Chinese superstate system, and they themselves have been creating a guinea pig state and testing the guinea pig state of North Korea, and that form of totalitarianism. We don't have long. Exports monopolized. Cashless society monopolized out of China. Everywhere else is collapsing. Coronavirus cases skyrocket everywhere except for in China. They say that people could be stuck in their house for up to 2 years. There's massive central banking. Inflation's going to hit everyone. There's already pandemonium in the streets. People are going crazy. The poor are getting poorer. The rich are getting poorer. Everyone's getting poorer. And the government succeeds, twiddles her fingers, laughs, and watches us all get divided and attack each other from within. It's pathetic. And unfortunately, many actual so-called freedom fighters are turning a blind eye to all of this and laying down like willing slaves. And it's really shown a lot of people come out of the woodwork as far as who is consistent in their message of individual freedom. It's not about, is the coronavirus bad or not? It's about how bad is government in comparison with it. And the government's always going to be the worst virus. And the government is spreading like the worst plague we've ever seen in all of human history right now. And knowing how many people the government has killed in the last 100 years, just out of the U.S. alone, hundreds of millions of people. I mean, when will we learn? When will we? Anyway, I'm not going to go into this any further. You guys get the point. I hope you guys share this video. I really appreciate all of you who've watched to this point in the video. Type in the comments below, China is the new world order, so I know that you've been watching so far into the video. I really appreciate it. It helps the algorithm. Hit that like button. Check those links below. I'm stuck in Mexico right now. I abandoned all of my things in the United States. And I have nothing except for some clothes, my cameras, my microphone, my laptop. But I have my freedom so far. Things are getting a little crazy here too. But it's not the world order yet here. And almost everyone on the streets that I talk to, no matter where I go, says this is all a plot to control humanity. And almost every Mexican says that, which tells you a lot about the minds here versus the indoctrination up there. Independence, self-sustainability here. Media and school indoctrination there. I hope all of you the best. Stay safe out there. This is a crazy time to live. And I'll be back with you guys with much more. I'm trying to do these videos as much as possible, but it's difficult down here. Anyway, stay tuned. And yeah, comment below. Let me know what you think. Share on social media. Check us out on float.app and join our new newsletter at iamband.com. iamband.com. Send in your email address and join that newsletter. I really appreciate it, guys. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth. Be the change. Like what you see here, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar. We really can't do it without you. We've been so insanely shadow banned, about 90% at this point, and 95% demonetized. As Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube, comes in and says that she is shutting down quote-unquote controversial content and cutting out the views on this controversial content by 70%. She's been bragging about it. We need your help more than ever in this battle for truth in information. You guys are what keeps us alive, so we really appreciate just even $1 a month makes a huge difference. If everyone could give just $1 a month, we wouldn't even have to worry about competing against the mainstream propaganda networks. You can also donate to our Bitcoin address on the screen for you to scan if you please, as well as in the comments and description. Liking and sharing makes a big difference as well, and finding us on alternative social media platforms like float.app, that's flote.app, makes a huge difference. We're at Josh Sigurdson as well as at Wham. Float is replacing Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon all in one with encrypted private messaging, and of course monetization on videos for creators, live streams with super chats in crypto, and most of all, no algorithm, because at the end of the day, it's all about reach, guys. This is all about actually reaching people with the message and waking up the public. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, Minds, BitChute, all sorts of different platforms. Try to follow us on as many things as possible, because very soon this channel will very likely just be completely deleted from YouTube, and you'll never see us again, and you'll be stuck with only the mainstream networks. Also, come on out and see us at Anarcho Vegas 2020 in Las Vegas, Nevada in July, where such speakers such as G. Edward Griffin and many others will be speaking. You could use promo code WHAM on your VIP tickets and save 10%, as well as buy extremely cheap tickets for just $20.20. You won't find a cheaper conference than this with such amazing names. Check anarchovegas.com for more information on that. We hope to see you out there. And anyway, I really appreciate all of you guys joining us. You make it possible for us to survive in this volatile, propagandized climate. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.